Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and today we're going to be talking about Siegfried from the Soul Calibur series. Now, Siegfried is of German descent. Being the son of a famous hero, Frederick, you could say Siegfried was always destined to be something quite special, and because of this decided to follow his father's footsteps, having trained under Frederick for about 10 to 15 years to perfect his style of swordsmanship. Now, when Siegfried was a very young adult, his father Frederick had to disappear and fight for his country, and with no one there to really guide Siegfried, he got mixed in with the wrong crowd, eventually becoming the leader of a gang made up of thieves and criminals. They went by the name of the Schwarzwinds, and their objectives were to attack and kill any knights who ran away from the service of their country, and for the most part they were very successful at what they did. They would attack a group of tired soldiers, with even Siegfried being able to behead their leader, but it was only until the moonlight glimmered on his face to which Siegfried realized that he had in fact killed his own father, and this drove Siegfried mad. He ran deep into the forest and more or less exiled himself from society, and was so mentally broken by this tragic event that he had mentally convinced himself that his father had been murdered by someone else. And around this time, Siegfried came to the knowledge of a weapon known as Soul Edge, and heard that numerous individuals were after this, including his father's apparent killer. So because of this, he would pursue after the weapon. He would travel far as the eye could see and kill anyone that got in his way whilst he was pursuing Soul Edge. Now eventually he came across the unconscious body of Cervantes, who had recently just been defeated by Taki and Sofita. So when he approached his body, he realized that Cervantes was wielding the legendary weapon. When he reached out to it, the being that lied within Inferno attacked Siegfried, and the two would battle. With Siegfried defeating Inferno, he had in fact earned the right to wield the weapon. So he took Soul Edge and wielded it as his own, and this is where the blade's influence comes into play. You see, the blade started to speak to him and said to Siegfried that if he were able to restore it back to its former self by sacrificing and killing people for it, then in exchange Soul Edge will in fact bring back his dead father. With no other options on the table here, Siegfried would comply and slowly but surely lose himself to the weapon's influence, becoming Nightmare. Now 3 years would pass by and Siegfried's consciousness within Nightmare was more or less gone, allowing Nightmare to do whatever he so wished as he was in the driver's seat. It was only until Nightmare was defeated by Shanghua as she wielded Soul Calibur to where Siegfried would once again gain control of his body and finally come to the realization of the horrific tragedies he had done whilst under the influence of Soul Edge. Because of this, Siegfried would once again disappear to atone for his sins, but this time he began to regain his sanity and finally come to the realization that he was the one who was responsible for killing his father, and originally he was going to go home and visit his mother, but instead decided to stay in exile to prevent any future deaths at his own hand. But despite his best efforts, every night he had in fact fallen asleep, he woke up with numerous dead bodies around him, as he had seemingly killed people in his sleep, not knowing that the weapon he wielded was in fact Soul Edge, who had disguised itself as another weapon. Now despite Siegfried's best efforts, he would be seduced by the sword's corruption, once again becoming Nightmare. But unlike before, Siegfried put a fight up, fighting against its influence as long as he possibly could, making it extremely difficult for Soul Edge and Nightmare to carry out their plans. Now one day when Nightmare wanted to reclaim his old stronghold, he'd come across and battle Raphael, and in the midst of combat as he was about to deal the killing blow, Siegfried would make him freeze, and an internal conflict would begin, with Siegfried battling the influence of Soul Edge. During this time, Raphael stabbed the eye of Soul Edge, which released not only Siegfried but Soul Calibur, as Soul Edge had hidden the weapon within itself to prevent anyone from using it against it. Siegfried would then take Soul Calibur and drive it straight through the core of Soul Edge, uniting them in soul embrace and rendering the two seemingly useless. Now from this point onwards, Siegfried tries to rebuild his life, but is still haunted by the memories of him being Nightmare, and on many occasions on his road to redemption would come into contact with people wanting his head, as he was formerly at one point Nightmare. He didn't feel any form of rage towards these people however, and instead only felt guilt. But before he could start atoning for his sins, another former wielder of Soul Edge, Zersalamor, set his eyes on the soul embraced weapon and absorbed the two into himself, contorting and changing himself into the being known as Abyss. Now knowing that his business wasn't quite finished, Siegfried set his eyes on Abyss so that way he could destroy this evil being, and when he arrived there, he was shocked to see that Nightmare was alive and was also there for the same reason. So the two in fact teamed up and destroyed Abyss, separating Zersalamor and the two legendary swords from each other. Siegfried would pick up Soul Calibur, and Nightmare would pick up Soul Edge, and the two would battle battle once again. The clashes of the blades were so incredibly powerful that they were tearing apart the fabric of reality. It eventually got to the point where when they actually clashed blades, they were teleported to different places in the world. And Siegfried was actually killed by this, but due to the overwhelming power of Soul Calibur, it had kept him alive. But when he briefly died, he had a somewhat very small confrontation with his father. He came to the realization that he'd been beating himself up so incredibly much about what had happened that he'd in fact lost focus on how he could actually redeem himself, and he knew that this could only be done now by him extinguishing the light within Soul Edge. And that is what he was able to do. He met Nightmare and they battled once again, with Siegfried stabbing and seemingly killing Nightmare, bringing Soul Edge to an end. Now Siegfried was finally able to return back home, but knew that deep down his battle wasn't quite over, as Soul Edge had spawned a bunch of beings known as the Malfested, who were individuals that were corrupted by shards of Soul Edge. So Siegfried would create a new team under the Scorchwind title, but now the group wouldn't consist of thieves and criminals, but instead that of somewhat mercenaries, ones that fought for the right of humanity. Now as the days passed by, Siegfried eventually gave up possession of Soul Calibur, as he slowly began to enjoy the luxury of a normal life. But as the years had passed by, he noticed that Soul Calibur had transformed, and that it had now become a one-handed weapon, meaning that Soul Edge would return. So he would entrust the new Soul Calibur to Zwei, as he was a member of his mercenary team, and give him the orders to find out a new individual that was worthy of wielding Soul Calibur, someone that could continue his legacy. Man, did that plan backfire. But yes, this is the last time we in fact see Siegfried within the Soul Calibur continuity. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video and found it rather informative, as I do really enjoy Siegfried as a character, and he goes through a lot of hoops here to really achieve what he kind of set out to do. Out of all of the characters in the Soul Calibur franchise, he's one that changes probably the most out of the series, because at the very beginning of Soul Edge, he's very cocky and arrogant, but after he succumbs to the will of Soul Edge, that cocky and arrogance is replaced by a story about redemption. And that's what I really like about Siegfried, as really by the end of his character arc, he comes out as a different and better person. But yeah, that's kind of it for this video. Now I will be doing another Soul Calibur video next week, and I want to talk about a female character, so I'm actually torn between Taki and Ivy. So I figured I'd let you guys down in the comments below in fact decide for me. I'll have 2 comments down below, and whichever one gets the most thumbs up will determine next week's episode. But yeah, that's kind of it for now guys. Now if possible, let's try getting this video to about 500 likes, as it's a great way of supporting this channel since YouTube's ad system is broken as hell. So by giving it a thumbs up, it helps out a ton. And if you would like to go that extra step, we also have a Patreon set up. All money contributed there is deeply appreciated, so if you would like to help out the channel and get some extra content on the side, a link for it will be down in the description below. Anyway guys, as always, please comment, like, subscribe, and share this video with everyone you know. Please take care, and I'll see you all next time.